Hi, alright, my name is Rosie and welcome to my channel. Here we give tips on how you can beat depression day after day. In this video you will discover the 6 signs of depression in adolescence, and what are the symptoms and the main causes. You're very lucky to be watching this video, because with these tips you won't have to go through the pain and suffering I went through. I suffered with depression for 15 years and saw my teenage daughter go through the same situation. It took me a long time to realize what was happening with her, but today, thank God, we managed to overcome this disease together definitively, so it's very important that you watch it until the end so you don't miss any details. But first I kindly ask you to subscribe to our channel, like and share the video so that the greatest number of people can be reached with this knowledge. After all, why does depression happen in adolescence? Adolescent depression is a disease that must be taken seriously, because if not properly treated it can cause consequences such as drug abuse and suicide, which are serious problems in the adolescent's life. Some clinical features of teenage depression are sadness, constant irritability, memory failure, lack of self-esteem, and a feeling of worthlessness. These characteristics can help parents, teachers, and close friends to identify this problem. Anyone from time to time feels sad or a little down, but these feelings are usually fleeting and go away in a few days. Now when you are depressed it interferes in a prolonged way in your daily life and causes suffering to you and the people around you. When depression develops during adolescence it appears in the moment when big changes are taking place in the personality, that is, when the individual is forming his own identity, independently of the parents. He is dealing, for example, with issues of gender and sexuality, and for the first time in his life he is making some decisions on his own. It is more difficult to recognize when the teenager is depressed, as the very young person is experiencing so many changes that the presence of sex and common emotional reactions are perceived as typical events of age. But there are 6 characteristic signs of depressive disorders that can help differentiate what is typical of adolescence and what may not. First sign: continuous sadness. Do you often feel sad for long periods of time? If the answer is yes, the things that normally lift your mood for sure are no longer the same joy or fun, plus you often feel down and down. Cries for no reason. Well, if you experience this often, it's important to know that changes in adolescence can depress our mood from time to time, but that it's neither normal nor healthy for the feeling of sadness to be continuous and debilitating. Second sign: prolonged irritation. Irritability is sometimes not perceived as a symptom of depression, as people assume that a depressive is just a very sad person, but the fact is that irritation and intolerance are common symptoms of depression. Therefore, the depressed person will often have a short temper and will fall out with people he loves for no apparent reason. So if you find yourself constantly in a bad mood, being upset by small things, and pushing your loved ones away from you, don't discount the possibility that you're going through a more complex problem than just a bad time. Third sign: feeling of helplessness. When you are depressed you feel bewildered, as if you are no longer in control of your life, overwhelmed by a sense of confusion and helplessness. It's true that we feel a bit like this when we are going through bodily changes and gaining more independence, but if this feeling of helplessness persists for more than a few weeks and is mixed with feelings of unhappiness, worry, guilt, fear and loneliness, it can mean a problem greater than the typical changes of adolescence. Fourth sign: increasing isolation. You increasingly prefer to be alone. Well, many people have little need for socialization and feel better that way. He likes to go out and spend a lot of his time with other people, and this has changed drastically, and more, if this isolation is growing and it is accompanied by an internal malaise, this is probably not healthy. When we're depressed it can be difficult to be around people, because we have to pretend we're normal, when in fact we're not. It's stressful, which can lead to total isolation. So, if you find yourself running away from people, talk to someone. Maybe it's just a passing thing, but it's important to start dealing with it now, to prevent it from turning into something worse in the future. Fifth sign: cognitive alterations. Do you have difficulty concentrating, remembering details, and even making decisions? These problems are very common during the adolescence when we face new challenges, and they are not necessarily the symptoms of depression. But things can be more serious when difficulties in concentrating, remembering, and deciding are accompanied by feelings of guilt, of being worth less than others, restlessness, fatigue, or lack of energy. So if you are having difficulties coping with these conflicts, it may be time to seek help. Sixth sign: negativism. You think all the time about past failures or mistakes, blame yourself excessively, and do not stop criticizing yourself? Well, problems with self-esteem and reassurance are typical of adolescence and do not always accompany us throughout life. But if you perceive yourself overly sensitive to rejection, if you feel really bad when you fail, find yourself thinking your life or future is bleak, it's possible that all this negativity is more than just an ordinary teenage crisis. If you feel like you're going through some of the situations we presented in this video, and it's been going on for weeks, the important thing you can do is seek counseling, because depression to any degree can be treated. If you don't feel able to seek professional help on your own, ask someone you trust for support. Remember that your mental health determines your entire quality of life, and you deserve to be listened to, welcomed, and given the help you need to live as best you can. I know exactly how you feel, this emptiness, this anguish, this lack of hope for tomorrow. I know it's not easy. I suffered a lot from this disease, and my teenage daughter was also developing depression without my realizing it. It was very difficult for her to accept that she was going through what I had been going through for years, but she opened up to me, and together we decided to seek help and overcome depression. There are currently new alternative treatments, in addition to psychotherapy and antidepressants, but they are little known and few people are aware. I will leave in the description of the video the link to the solution that helped me, my daughter, and thousands of people to overcome depression. Today we are fully recovered and we have come back on top. We have gone from endless sadness to contagious joy every day. I sincerely hope that you too can overcome depression as we did. A big hug and see you in the next video.